Lynched on CTV. Proudly brought to you by Christchurch's #1 dining offer, Sequoia 88 at the Redwood Hotel. A food concept unequalled. Great to have your company tonight. It's girl power in action. Outspoken councillor Ellie Jones and her Shirley Papanui Ward colleague Pauline Cotter join me, and Lynched starts right now. Good evening. Well, the books have been opened. We know what we have to do as a city to pay for the roads and the infrastructure, the anchor projects, and yes, there are plenty of positive things happening in this city this year. So let's get some perspective with councillors Ellie Jones and Pauline Cotter, who join me this evening. And good evening to you both.
Good evening, Chris.
Nice to have you here. Let's discuss the news story of the day in terms of local issues. Thank goodness New Brighton residents can breathe a sigh of relief. The awful freedom campers have disappeared. Pauline, finally, yeah?
Oh, look, Chris, I'm sure they're not all awful, and I think this is a classic case of a minority group bringing everybody down. Now, I'd like to quote Glenn Livingston, Councillor Livingston. He was on ZB the other morning. I don't know if you heard him, and he said, "Isn't it fantastic that people want to go to Brighton?" So I think we do have to keep that in mind, that these freedom campers, they are tourists, they are seeing our country. We need to try and welcome them and make things easy for them, but they need to toe the line. They need to respect our country. And I think most of them do. So I'm quite sympathetic to a lot of them. I think they're really nice to have here, and we need to welcome them and keep them here.
I like what you're saying though, but when you've got a poor old dear old 90-year-old woman who's living right next door to them, and of course when I went and visited them, they were, you know, very cordial and friendly, but you could tell the noise was starting to creep up. They were drinking their beers illegally. You do wonder why, though, it's taken so long to move them on. Ellie Jones, am I being too mean here?
No, you're not. And actually, when I was doing talkback and when I was not in council, I would say exactly the same thing, Chris. But the problem is, I think, that often, and I'm not calling you uninformed because you're not, and you've got people who are right there speaking to you all the time, but it's not as easy as whacking a bylaw in there. And actually, I wonder whether it's as easy as putting a sign up.
Apparently it is, though, isn't it? Because didn't the sign go up today near the car park?
Yes, the sign has gone up.
So is that legal in law, though, you know what I mean?
This is what I have questioned over the last couple of days. We're dealing with something and have been dealing with something similar to this in our ward with the street workers, with the prostitution. So, you know, people suggest that we just ban them, ban the street workers from outside residential houses. We actually, well, I do anyway, I don't want to speak for Pauline, wish we could. It's unacceptable, this kind of behaviour, antisocial behaviour with families, with elderly and so forth. But we can't do that. We do not have the legal teeth to do that. There is not enough strength and guidance and foundation and statute law in the legislation that allows us to make a bylaw around the street workers that people are wanting, banning. You can't ban it. So the no camping may be there because they're using a parking bylaw, for example. You can only park there for 15 minutes
so perhaps
or for half an hour.
But I was surprised when I saw a photo saying no camping. No camping. I thought, well, hang on, we've got a bylaw that says you can't, well, there is no bylaw, essentially.
No, we need, and this is what the staff have been doing, is making sure that we can put up that sign. So there will be something in the legislation that is, or other bylaws we've got, that enables them to do that. And look, we've been so busy with district plan, we haven't had a chance to talk to staff about what it is they are using to put that in place.
It's funny you say that, Pauline, because in a way I do agree with you, because we do want to encourage people to come to this city, but we also...
Brighton.
Well, exactly.
Brighton, yes.
Well, you know, I'm a Brighton lover, but we also want to encourage them to do the right thing as well, though.
That's right.
It's a catch-22, isn't it? That balancing act. Let's get them to Christchurch, but let's not make them feel too unfriendly. But I mean, it was easy enough for Auckland Christchurch International Airport. They thought, that's it, you're not using our premises as camping ground, here's the zones, and that was it. But we just can't do that when it comes to council.
Yeah, well, I think
more teeth required, do you think?
Well, that's just, once again, it comes down to the same thing of enforcement. But with the signs going up, people do seem to respect that. A lot of them actually are not aware that you're not allowed to. And I think we need to look at social media as well, because they've got a website and they put this thing right around the world. Hey, come here, you can park for free, you know. So, but the signs, let's see if they work, whether you can enforce it or not.
I think they have worked. I got some feedback from residents saying
let's see if they keep working.
they're out of the way, thank goodness
and
for
the
that.
staff have actually said that they are monitoring and watching how this unfolds.
Issue number 2 that was raised today, interesting article in the Christchurch Press by Lois Cairns suggesting, well, Town Hall, it was nice, and yeah, I'm sure the acoustics are fine, don't get me started on that argument because that's a fallacy. But what do you reckon, Ali Jones? Do we want to save this glorious building, or do we want to knock it down and put that money elsewhere?
If it was up to me, that's what I would want to be doing.
Knock it down?
Yep.
Get rid of it? Why?
Well, actually, maybe not just knock it down, but I think be a little more circumspect when it comes to what you want to save. I know that there were some councillors in the last term that suggested just saving the auditorium, but that was rejected by the then council as a whole. I don't have a problem with it going. I have memories of going there. My first concert, Shakin' Stevens, don't tell anyone.
I saw True Bliss there. Remember
there
True
you
Bliss?
go. So True Bliss. Oh, that's after. There's about 15, 20 years between those.
And the Vinger Boys. Remember the Vinger Boys?
No, what's that? Who let the dogs out? Is that the Vinger Boys?
No, close. But
okay,
I saw the Vinger Boys.
Santana. I saw Santana.
Little Feet. You're a different generation again.
This is the generation gaps. But I mean, I loved the Town Hall special choir events there.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
However, this whole argument that I read time and time again that the acoustics were world class, yes, they were world class for its time then, but I've got people who work in the acoustic industry, so to speak, that can be recreated. That is easy enough to recreate.
It already has been in the Michael Fowler Centre, hasn't it?
Well, correct. We've now got the Theatre Royal, which is a beautiful
isn't it?
auditorium, if you want to call it that. I mean, even CBS Arena did its job, trying to cater for what could have played at the Theatre Royal. But can you just bring me up to speed, no pressure, on this whole performing arts precinct? So if this gets the green light, fixing the town hall as such, does that mean there'll be less money for the performing arts precinct? Where are we at with that?
Well, it means there'll be less money, and it also means that it will change the format of the performing arts precinct, which is what we're going along with at the moment. We basically have the job out for tender at the moment, I believe, that's correct. So once we've been through that process, once the insurance is sorted, Chris, that's one of the major issues with this still as well. But it will, because you've got the James Hay, not that we're going to keep that, but I'm saying if we did keep the James Hay plus the auditorium, you've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of seats there. They have to be taken into consideration when you're looking at the configuration of the performing arts precinct. I mean, my preference is that we went with that plan where we have an opportunity to create something wonderful and new as a part of the new performing arts precinct.
It's hard though, isn't it? Because I do respect perhaps older generations who love, you know, some of these older buildings, they're so desperate to cling on to them. But I think, and you said it beautifully, that there is a sense though we can create something new and fresh, and that can be a younger generation's history, and I think sometimes we can lose sight of that. I could almost talk about the cathedral here, but I won't.
Well, I'm older generation. I'd love to see something new and amazing in there, to be honest.
I like the way you put it. Let's create history.
Let's create our own history, and I worry sometimes the old guard in this city prevents that. I really do. We've got to take a break, but still to come, the priorities for the council, plus roads and traffic. Stay with us. Welcome back to Lynched. My guests tonight are councillors Ali Jones and Pauline Cotter. Ali, perhaps you're best placed to discuss this next topic. I always go on about the central city. I seem to be a bit obsessed with it, to be honest, perhaps because I live near there. But the residential rebuild is just as important to discuss. Is there a sense from you and what you see in the community that things are starting to happen? Are houses being rebuilt? What are you seeing in the community from perhaps a grassroots level?
Definitely things are picking up and have picked up. Unfortunately, I think there are still too many who are caught up in that insurance EQC nightmare. And I also understand too that a lot of builders geared up for the rebuild. So say 2 years ago, they bought new utes, they got new staff on, they upskilled, they got ready to go. It didn't happen as quickly as they thought, and they have now left. So what that's what I'm really concerned about, is that we've got this demand surge maybe a year, 18 months later than was expected. And just some figures for you at the moment as far as repairs go, IAG have committed to rebuild 997 new houses, and to date they have completed only 61. So, I mean, that just gives you an example of, you know, the number.
I'm sorry, that is a pathetic amount.
Well, the major repairs for IAG, this is in TC3 as well, so TC3 is more difficult. So IAG have committed to undertake major repairs to 1,283 properties in TC3. At the end of November last year, which are the latest figures, they had completed 27. Okay?
Just?
Yeah. Yeah. So I've deviated slightly from what you were talking about, but it's still related to the rebuild.
But you've got to remember too that perhaps they were not handed the cases, perhaps they weren't put over
I'm
capital.
not blaming.
We don't know what the timeline is.
I totally agree, and I'm not blaming it. In fact,
the size of the job.
And part of the issue is that cases are being kicked to the insurers 4 years after the event, with EQC ruling them over cap. You tell me what the hell's been going on in that 4 years.
Well, I'd like to know myself.
Yeah.
But 4 years, it's still unbelievable to think that we are still really having these types of conversations. I still find that mind-boggling and incredibly sad, particularly for elderly people who may never see their home. That absolutely breaks my heart. Pauline, what are you seeing?
Yeah, well, yes, we all know people that never got back into their homes, and it's very sad. But on a lighter note, I mean, I live in St Albans. There's a heck of a lot of rebuilding going on there now. I've noticed a lot. So
she's my shiny light. She always gives me
She brings you the positive stuff.
Yeah, well, there is.
Yeah, I need somebody like that too. When I start moaning about how nothing's happening, I need somebody like to say that too.
Give her a ring.
I've noticed it. Just suddenly, bang, these houses are going up everywhere.
Yeah, there are.
So I think we're just starting to see it now. And like you say, Ali, perhaps we expected it a little bit too early. And this is the time for it this year. So
without sounding like a positivity fairy, but I am starting to see a lot of houses. My parents out in Burwood. I am starting to see, you know, a lot of new homes being built on what I thought were new homes in the first place land. So there is a sense of, I don't know, progress. It's nice to see every time I might visit, you know, there's a new home that's going up. So things are happening, but it is incredibly slow. In terms of the Resource Management Act, do you, from what I've seen, reading an article, has it gone far enough, or any of the issues that Nick Smith, I mean, it was touted as the dramatic changes to the RMA. Will it really speed up things like consent process within council, consents for even building a home, consents for trying to chop down a tree? From what I see, the answer is probably maybe, but not really. It feels like there's still too much interpretation. What do you think?
Well, our council has speeded up our own processes by getting our building consents back on track, which is a good thing. It's all about a balancing act, though. Yes, we want to speed up the consents, but we need to protect our environment, our resources and our amenity. So that's the tricky part, and I don't know really how much it will actually change all that, because those are paramount to the RMA.
I mean, the RMA is one tool in the toolbox, and it's an important one. But another part is land availability, and I know that's what the Minister and both Ministers are looking at helping along, is the availability of land. It's resourcing. It's the physical cost of building. I mean, I know people who could have built two houses on the one piece of land they were left after the earthquakes when their house was demolished. But the developer contributions were too expensive, and funnily enough, the scaffolding meant it was too expensive. Now, scaffolding's important because they were building a two-storey place to fit two on. So, I mean, there are a whole lot of things that contribute to building our houses, and it's not only the RMA.
I was going to say, in bad choice of words, it's a balancing act, isn't it? Because also you need the health and safety rules if something falls off the scaffolding. But, gee whiz, I do wonder, you talk about land, and also I want to bring you to land supply, and I suppose it's political stuff here, but there's a sense perhaps those on the right, I don't know if I'm right in saying this, they say, oh, look, there's so much land in Canterbury, unrestricted, you know, open up more land, the fringes of Christchurch, that will bring down the house prices. Perhaps those on the left would probably say, no, restrict the land supply, we want to live in this compact city environment.
But it's not a left and right thing, Chris,
it's
actually an infrastructure, and it's an economy thing. So the more you sprawl out, the more it costs to run your city, because you need more infrastructure and more maintenance and OPEX and CAPEX and all that. It's really about, if we want to intensify, put more houses in less space, do more apartments. I mean, but I don't want to see little tiny boxes.
No, but I guess what I'm saying is, who says we want that though?
Well, the urban designers say that the intensification is needed in order to provide growth, vibrancy, business to an inner city. I, for one, don't have a problem with a degree of sprawl. It's just a personal thing. I'd like to look at linking areas like in North Canterbury, where people are moving to, with light rail. I think we need to look at that, and I wonder if opening up some land just on the edge of our city would make a difference. But I'm not an urban designer. So the urban designers say intensification is what's needed in order to invigorate, to grow a central city.
I think particularly in the central city, we never have had a lot of apartment living, and it's about just having a bit of diversity, a little bit of option there. Not saying let's cram it full of apartments, but let's have some design let built nicely, environmentally.
Actually, speaking of that, you just reminded me of something. Do you remember there was a big fanfare about from CCDU and Sarah, and they were trumpeting some urban design, I think, like ugly.
Yeah, the Breathe.
Whatever. When's it getting started?
Oh, we couldn't possibly comment on that, could we?
No.
No, actually, I'm not sure. I think they are.
Should have been done by now, Ali Jones.
Well, you know, I mean, this is another.
But you know what I mean?
Yes, I do know
think
what
it was
you
a
mean.
great
It's
fanfare.
frustrating. Yeah.
I think that was a funding problem at the moment, but I think it's being resolved.
It's a great idea,
You've just
though.
given me a good story then.
No, the idea is
look,
great,
it's
and
fine,
it's
because there will be
important.
people that want to stay in that,
Absolutely.
but I wonder what happened. I'm going to find out now, thank you.
Yes.
Listen, we're going to take a break, but I know that's a big issue. Oh, you go, oh, what have I done? I know it's a big issue in your ladies' ward, and it's the Northern Arterial and Cranford Street project, so we'll discuss that when we return. Welcome back. Councillors Ali Jones and Pauline Cotter are my guests tonight. Let's briefly touch on the Northern Arterial and Cranford Street project. Seems like a massive project. The planning seems like it's at the end stages, up to submissions now. This is an important one, particularly in your ward. Pauline?
It is a massive project.
Give us the goss on this, would you?
Well, it's NZTA will take it from where the northern motorway begins now at the top end of the main North Road, and it'll come down parallel to Grimsey's Road. Where it hits QE2 Drive, there the council responsibility and the ratepayer takes over paying for that. So there'll be a link that cuts across that rural wetland there, and will join Cranford Street at a roundabout. Now, there's plans to 4-lane Cranford Street as far as Innes Road, and after that...
It kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Well, does it
Well,
mean
it
you
would
have to
have
widen
to.
the road, though?
No, it's already wide enough. But after that, there seems to be a problem, and we've had a lot of feedback from the community about it, and worried about bottlenecking from there down, and what happens to Cranford Street when it hits Beeley Ave. But the modelling from staff shows that the traffic is supposed to sort of start splitting off as it goes down. But there seems to be some doubt in the community, so we've got a wee bit of work to do around that. But this is just, you know, some way to get the cars in, and then the main North Road and Papanui Road is supposed to be for public transport. So this is all part of a big picture plan.
Right.
So
Sounds like
they're
an
predicting
absolute
that...
minefield. This is not going to happen overnight, is it?
Watch the space.
They're predicting that Cranford Street will carry 42,000 vehicles a day by 2026.
20 of.
Well, so
Be all over
10
by
years
then.
away.
Planning for the future, Chris.
So it's proving to be quite unsettling for some in the community. There's people who think it'll split St Albans and split Edgware, and prove to be problematic. Now, I don't know. We're just playing a wait-and-see game until we see the plans.
It's in the process now that this is why we're finding these things out, and we're getting information from staff, we're getting comments and submissions from members of the public. It's a very family-intensive area.
Yeah.
There are schools there and preschools there, so we have to look at those things as well, and that's what the whole consultative process is. It isn't just, we're not paying lip service here. We need to hear from people, and we need to talk to staff and get
I did
their
try to read your
expertise.
minutes from your community board meeting on this, and I gave up.
You should come to a meeting.
No, thank you. Any free food?
Yes,
Yes, we
we
do.
do.
Seriously?
Sometimes,
you
sometimes
genuinely look
sushi.
so excited when you said
We eat like a roll. Seriously, a cup of tea and a sarnie. It's
Well, and some
You
nice
look
dry
so excited
biscuits.
when you said your sandwiches.
Even tea and coffee. But the thing is that the NZTA part of it is part of the government's roads of national significance. They've got several around the country. They're determined to put that in, but they cannot put it in until the City Council links it with the city. So therein is the problem.
A couple of final things I want to end with today. I didn't cover this off with Leanne last week, but I think it's important, is this whole city parking thing. Right. Even now when I try to park in the city, it's getting a little bit difficult now, which is almost a good thing because people are using it.
And it's expensive too, I have to say. I find $3.10 an hour expensive.
Is it that much? Oh, I just park and hope for the best. Hope that work will pick up the tab.
What does your car look like?
Well, it's got ZB written all over it. You can't miss it. Listen to Chris Lynch, it says. But see, on one hand, it's great that, you know, that we've got these anchor projects, yeah, I get all that. But at the same time, isn't it kind of a bit dumb that they didn't plan for car parking? It almost seems to me like, oh, we've got the Justice Precinct, yeah. Car parks? Oh, council will sort that out. That's how I sort of see it. I mean, who is responsible? Do you think it should be the council? Sarah, can you sit down and have your sandwiches with the CCDU people and say, here's what we're going to do? Because car parking is so important.
We've got a lot
we're not
of
going to get people off bikes,
and not many answers. We've got, on the one hand, we're creating a slow zone through the central city, 30 k's. We're trying to reduce cars coming in. The retailers are calling for more car parks so that more cars can come in. This is the problem.
There is no questioning that we need a strategy and car parking in the inner city, and it's not them or us. It has to be something that we both do together. The issue over the minister using his extraordinary powers, what you have to remember with this, not you personally, but you know, some people sort of went a bit off in the media about it and rather in an uninformed way, is that Minister Brownlee can use powers like that. We are bound by the Local Government Act. We have to consult. There is little flexibility around what we do, and actually that does make things a bit slower. But that's what we are bound to do. That's what bureaucracy and local government requires of you, is you have to abide by the Local Government Act. Now, the extraordinary powers of Minister Brownlee mean that he can move more quickly. It's a very point that he has those, rightly or wrongly. So I think people have got to keep that in perspective as well.
It's an impossible task, isn't it, when you want to use your extraordinary powers to speed things up. He's going to be, you know, cut off at the knees for doing so. Then he wants more, you know, consultation on various anchor projects to be cut off at the knees. Who would on earth want to be the earthquake recovery minister?
Well, damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Yeah.
And we get that a lot in our position and at council as well.
Let's talk mowing lawns, please. It was great for Talkback. You would appreciate that one for Talkback.
We made it just for you,
Thank
actually.
you. I'm glad you did. So what is the deal here? At the moment, what are your personal thoughts? So save a bit of cash, as one of the councillors was saying, whose name I've forgotten. Must talk to him at some stage, I'm sure he exists. This will be an extension of mowing, because people mow their booms, but if they want to mow a smaller size reserve, they can do that too. I mean, is it really such a bad thing?
I don't know why people are focusing on the lawn mowing. It's actually more about actually taking care and sharing the responsibility for our public realm, our green spaces. And out of that, you will find you develop stronger communities. People make friends. They get rewarded for what they put in. It becomes an experience, and it's sharing our city. And that's more. It's not really about lawn mowing per se. It's really about gardening.
Getting some of those on PD out and about to mow the lawns. They can mow the entire Hagley Park.
Well, we're already benefiting from that sort of labour too. Out in the Styx Conservation Area, they're doing a fabulous job.
You know, my mother.
I don't know your mother.
No. So, but my mother, she lives next to a reserve, and sometimes if I'm going over to visit her, she'll be out doing a bit of weeding. Well,
there you go. And why is she doing that? She must be enjoying it, and she sees what she's doing. She's contributing.
Yeah, but the great thing about this, and this is why you would have loved it on Talkback, is, you know, and I did a couple of interviews, we both did on this, you know, we weren't suggesting people rocked up to Hagley Park on their ride-ons, for God's sake.
I know, but it would have been a much better story.
Well, it would have made a lovely visual story, wouldn't it? You imagine that.
Well, I've got a minute left, and I do want to end on something positive, and, you know, I'm not this big fitness freak, but I got so excited when I'm getting excited things like the International Mountain Bike Park, the Port Hills. It's exciting, isn't it?
Oh,
I mean, there is a sense of things are happening. We've turned the page. We realise we've still got a lot of issues, but we've got this international mountain bike thing. Thank goodness some greenie didn't try to prevent that from happening by saying it was going to wreck the forest or something.
Don't say that about grannies.
But you know, greenie.
Oh, I thought you said grannies.
No, greenie.
Well, don't say about greenies either.
I mean, it's great. We've got an international mountain bike on the way. We've got the international cricket. We've got FIFA. It is happening. I think Leanne Dalzell's quite right to try to be optimistic in a city at times where it feels like there's no hope. What do you reckon?
Yeah, well, I think you've hit the nail on the head, absolutely. And let's not forget the Buskers Festival. I mean, I still believe it is the best event that we have in the city. That, Summertimes and Kids Fest are my absolute favourite. What I do want to focus on and would like to see some movement on is our roads. That's a personal thing for me, and I know that most of my colleagues feel like that too.
Well, I think we might be just chucked back to core services actually, and then That's where we've got to start.
Hang on. Back to core services.
As a priority.
Thank you.
Then,
We're out of time. Pauline Cotter, Ellie Jones, thanks for coming on to Lynched. It's been an absolute
Chris.
pleasure.
Been
Appreciate
great.
your time.
Thank
This
you.
program will be available on demand and via YouTube and, of course, on the Rebuild Christchurch website as well tomorrow. Leanne Dalzell joins me on News Talk ZB, but from the CTV team, you have a good night. Lynched on CTV, proudly brought to you by Christchurch's #1 dining offer, Sequoia 88 at the Redwood Hotel, a food concept unequalled.